When we use the word hope in just everyday modern conversation, it almost always carries this undercurrent of uncertainty, you
Oh
know?
yeah, like a fragile wishing.
Right, exactly. Like we hope the weather holds out for the weekend, or, we hope this really difficult situation at work resolves itself quickly.
Hmm.
We basically tie our peace of mind to a very specific earthly outcome. And well, if the circumstances don't align with our preferences, that hope just collapses.
Because it's completely dependent on variables we can't control.
Yeah.
And that modern usage has deeply conditioned how we think, which makes it really challenging when we actually approach the spiritual life.
It really does.
Because when we open a spiritual classic like divine intimacy, we're encountering a definition of hope that operates on an entirely different plane. I
Mm.
mean, we're not looking at a coping mechanism here.
Right.
We're looking at a theological virtue,
Mm.
which means its focus, its anchor,
Mm.
and its ultimate end is not on earthly outcomes at all.
Mhm.
It's on God himself.
Welcome back to our continuous reflection series. Today we are exploring meditations 246 through 249 of divine intimacy. And we're tracing this really profound sequence on the theological virtue of Christian hope.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sequence.
It is. And as a fellow traveler in the interior life, you know that this journey requires solid, unshakable footing. So over the course of this discussion, we want to trace a very specific, intentional movement in the soul.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look at how hope first receives God as our infinite good, how it learns to rest entirely on his goodness rather than our own efforts, how it must necessarily be proved in the darkness of desolation, and then finally how it expands into this boundless reliance on divine mercy.
Which is such a necessary progression, because to properly establish what this theological hope actually aims toward, it's well, it's essential to distinguish it from faith.
Right, because they aren't the same thing.
Exactly. They are inextricably linked, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but they perform different functions in the soul. You know, faith allows us to know God. Through faith, we believe in him. We apprehend his attributes, his goodness, his beauty, his providence, even though we can't physically see him.
Yeah.
But this knowledge, as beautiful as it is, it leaves a gap. It really needs to be supported by certainty that we will one day possess him.
And that is exactly where hope enters the equation. It moves the soul from just the knowledge of God through faith to the firm certitude of actually possessing him. Hope provides that supernatural assurance that this infinite God actually belongs to us,
Yes.
that he desires to be our eternal reward. But, I mean, you have to admit that introduces a staggering tension.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're talking about an infinite, perfect creator on one hand, and on the other, we are profoundly aware of our own, limited, frail human nature. The distance between our capability and his perfection is it's unbridgeable on our own.
It really is. Which is exactly why relying on our own merits always leads to anxiety.
Always.
It's natural to look at ourselves, to see the catalog of our daily imperfections, and just wonder, well, how could I ever reasonably expect to reach him?
Right. It makes me think of an analogy. Relying on our own merits for salvation, it's kind of like trying to cross an ocean by swimming.
Oh, wow.
It's impossible. You're going to drown. Whereas resting on God's mercy is like trusting a sturdy ship to carry you across. But that brings up a really practical question about our own agency.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, if this certitude requires total reliance on God getting on the ship, how do we understand our own need to cooperate? Because we can't just be passive observers, right? How do we balance this total reliance on God with our own need to act?
That's a great question, and it's something the Council of Trent actually addresses really clearly. They talk about the absolute necessity of a very firm hope in the help of God.
The help of God.
Right. There's this theological concept called helping omnipotence. God is always ready to come to our aid. Now, it would be rash to assume God will just sanctify us without any participation on our part. I mean, you still have to walk onto the ship, right?
Exactly. You can't just sit on the dock.
Right. We have to do everything in our power to avoid faults and to practice virtue generously. But the vital point for the interior life is determining where we are actually placing our confidence.
We place it in the ship, not in our own swimming ability.
Precisely. We exert our absolute best effort, but having done so, we have to recognize that our best is completely insufficient to cross the ocean. Our hope doesn't look at our own defective works.
Which are always mingled with self-interest anyway.
Right, even on our best days.
Mm-hmm.
True hope looks strictly to God's salvific will. And this is something Saint Therese of Lisieux highlights so beautifully.
Oh, I love her writing on this.
Me too. She teaches that holiness isn't about perfectly executing some specific set of practices or having a perfectly balanced spiritual ledger. It's a disposition of the heart. It's remaining little and just being boldly confident in the arms of the Father.
Remaining little. That's so key, because if we base our hope on our own strength, it will always be insecure. Human nature is just inherently unstable.
So unstable.
Which brings us to a really difficult reality and the next phase of this spiritual movement, the test of hope.
Ah, yes, the crucible.
Right, because it is entirely natural and honestly quite easy to trust God when the spiritual life feels full of consolation.
Oh, for sure. When prayer is sweet and
Yeah.
it feels peaceful.
Exactly. But we have to address what happens when that goodness is no longer felt. And I want to pose a critical distinction for the listener here, because I think it's a trap a lot of us fall into.
Okay.
How do we separate genuine, mature trust in God from this sort of false therapeutic presumption?
Yeah.
You know, the idea that trusting him means our earthly suffering is just going to disappear.
Oh, that's such an important distinction. Because that therapeutic mindset is a total distortion of the gospel. God permits suffering to purify the soul, much like gold is tried in a furnace.
Right.
The classical spiritual writers are unanimous on this. Hope has to be purified, and that purification cannot happen in the light. It has to happen in the dark.
Wow.
In the dark, yeah. Look at Job, right? He's the archetype of this experience. Stripped of his property, his children, his health, total interior and exterior desolation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the absence of consoling feelings is the exact mechanism that allows hope to be tested.
Because if we always felt good, we wouldn't know why we were loving him.
Exactly. If God continually gave us these consoling emotions, we'd never truly know if we loved God for who he is or if we just loved the pleasant feelings he provides.
It's like, are we seeking the God of consolations or the consolations of God?
Precisely. And this highlights a really vital theological reality. The theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity, they do not reside in our emotions. They reside in the will.
In the will. So it's a
Right.
choice.
It is a choice. When the practice of these virtues is accompanied by feeling, it's pleasant. But an act of hope, made coldly and dryly, in the midst of complete desolation, using only the will, that is immensely more meritorious than an act made in joy.
That is so freeing to hear, because when we're in the middle of a trial, the natural human reaction is just to rebel, right? To feel abandoned and to confuse the absence of feeling with the absence of God.
Which is such a dangerous confusion.
It is. But knowing that we don't need to feel peaceful to make an act of trust, we simply need to choose it. That changes everything. God knows our frailty. He doesn't condemn us for those involuntary feelings of fear or sadness.
Not at all.
We just have to will to have confidence. And once hope has survived that crucible, once it's been completely stripped of self-reliance, we enter the final movement, the expansion into boundless hope.
And this is where it gets incredibly beautiful.
It really is, but it also brings up this fascinating dynamic about how we handle our own spiritual failures. Because even with purified hope, we still fail.
Oh, constantly.
Right. And when we fail, the immediate temptation is to shrink back. We get discouraged and out of shame. We try to hide from God. We might stop praying as earnestly, or we approach him with hesitation.
Because we feel unworthy of his attention.
Exactly. But it makes me think of another analogy. Withdrawing from God because of our spiritual frailties is like a patient hiding their symptoms from a physician.
Oh, that's good.
It defeats the entire purpose of going to the doctor. So how do we use our very weaknesses to plead our cause before God rather than letting them, clip the wings of our hope?
Well, to do that, we really have to analyze the danger of discouragement itself. Becoming overly frustrated with our own imperfections, it feels like humility, but it's actually a symptom of subtle pride.
Wait, really? Pride?
Yes, because it shows that we were seeking security in ourselves rather than in God. We're upset because our self-image as a good, holy person was shattered. We're trusting in our own strength to carry us. When we fall, the reality of our weakness is just exposed for what it always was.
So by withdrawing, we're just sinking deeper into the exact problem that caused the fall in the first place.
Exactly. You're hiding the symptoms from the only physician who can cure them. The proper response is to acknowledge the fault, present the empty space to God exactly as it is, ask for pardon, and then immediately renew our efforts with immense confidence.
Our weakness actually becomes a cry for his help.
Yes. And this brings in a brilliant insight from St. Thomas Aquinas. He noted that because God is infinite, mankind can never love, believe, or hope in him to excess.
Wow.
Therefore, the measure of hope is to hope without measure.
Hope without measure. I love that.
Our confidence can never be exaggerated because it's founded entirely on God's mercy. which has no limits.
Which circles right back to Saint Therese.
So-
She constantly reminds us that we obtain from God exactly as much as we hope for.
Yes, exactly as much.
If we hope for a little, if we constrain our expectations based on our own poor performance, we receive a little. But if we open our hearts completely, acknowledging our total poverty but trusting in His infinite riches, His mercy just rushes in to fill that void.
It rushes into the empty spaces. This is the essence of boundless hope. It carries us beyond our own poor works, straight into the arms of infinite mercy.
It's a complete reorientation of the interior life. We've traced such a profound movement today.
We really have.
From the initial confidence in God's promises, through the detachment from self-reliance, and then into that stark, beautiful willed trust during suffering and desolation, finally arriving at this boundless confidence in divine mercy.
A confidence that isn't shaken by our own frailty.
Right. So as you continue your day, we want to leave you with a quiet, practical invitation. Sometime today, in the midst of just one ordinary difficulty or a moment of frustration, maybe it's a delay, a misunderstanding, or a recurring personal fault, just pause. Practice a single hidden act of trust in God, an act made entirely by the will, regardless of how it feels.
You don't need to conjure up a feeling of peace. You just need to choose to trust His helping power.
Exactly. And in doing so, leave behind the illusion of your own strength and rest in the quiet strength of placing all your confidence in the helping power of God.